Hello, everybody. Please, I want to confirm that you all can hear me clearly and audibly.
Yes, we can.
All right, welcome. My name is Frederick Achiva, and I'll be your instructor for today's session. Last week, my boss took the session on Docker, and we had an interesting session whereby we all learned how to use Docker, how to Dockerize simple applications, how to Dockerize a Node.js application, how to Dockerize even a Python application. I know the Python was given as a task. I want to believe that's true. So before we continue, I want to ascertain, did anybody on this call attempt the task? Anybody? We shared a link. I don't know if the form was submitted. I was preoccupied, so I didn't check it. Okay. Somebody said
Yes.
it was Node.js. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know. So I think in the live class, it was what is it called? It was with Python, and the task was to set up Dockerize the Node.js application. All right. So thank you, everybody. Thank you. So is there anybody on this call that still finds it difficult or to understand what Docker is? Feel free. It's a learning phase, okay? We want to try to cover as much as possible. You can always use the comment section to notify us, okay? So that's why I'm asking. If there's anybody, please use the comment section and let me know, sir. Because once I share my screen, we'll just move on as fast as possible so I don't make any assumptions. All right, so since this from the comment section, it means everybody is good. So today's session, we will be focusing on Docker Compose, right? Docker Compose. And we will learn how we can use Docker Compose to build what we call multi-containers. In other words, in simple terms, Docker Compose is a tool that's used to connect two containers, two or more containers, right? That's what it is. How you can connect two or more containers. Now, I will share my screen. Please confirm when you can see my screen. And once you confirm that, then I will start recording the session. Friends, can you all see it?
Yes, I can see your screen.
All right, thank you so much.
Yes,
All
we
right.
can see it.
Okay. So this is just some slides and
Before you continue, could you please confirm it's being recorded?
okay, all right, I think I'm not sure it's being recorded right now, but boss, can you help me to record it? Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
doing that. Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. All right, friends, if you all see this, this is just some slides. I could share this for anybody interested that wants to just have some perspective as to the whole concept of Docker virtualization and the rest of them, how everything came into being and the rest of them. Okay, this can give you more context and more understanding. So in the last class, we did extensively, we understood what Docker is, right? We learned how to build Docker files, right? Using simple, we learned how to create a container using Docker images from Docker files, right? Now, because everybody on this call was in the last class, and I want to believe you understand, if you see here, what we have here is components of Docker ecosystem. So a lot of times you'll be hearing words like Docker Hub, Docker Engine, Docker images, containers, Docker volumes, and Docker file. Okay. Now, friends, if you ever want to gain mastery, let me not use the word mastery, but if you want to grow as a DevOps engineer, in future, you will be using Kubernetes. And if you have a good understanding of Docker, the learning curve for Kubernetes becomes very, very easy. Trust me. If you can understand how Docker works, it will be easier for you to understand how Kubernetes works. Okay? So feel free to ask me questions as we dive deep. Okay? Now, is there anybody here that has not used a Docker Hub before? If you haven't, please let me know in the comment section again, then I'll know what to do. So, but we will be touching around all these things and then try to dive deep as fast as possible, because 2 hours may not be sufficient if I want to break everything down. But let's go deep down. So this is just an explanation. So now my main emphasis is we covered, this was literally what we covered in the last class, everything that has to do with Docker. This is just like the whole notes for everything that has to do with Docker, right? And the Docker file. Now this is just the explanation of each of the Docker file, right? Somebody's asking if I was going to share this slide. I'll think about it. If the boss approves it, then we can share this. Okay, so but it's fine. It's not something too difficult. We could share this. Okay, so and then yeah, so this is the first one. So the focus for today is going to be on things that has to do with what is it called, microservice and the rest. We may not get into Docker Swarm, which is an orchestration tool, but I just want you to know that the first thing I will want to show you on this call is this. If you can see my screen, okay, no, let me show you this. Yes. If you can see my screen, this is an example of what a Docker Compose file looks like. A simple Docker Compose file. This is what it looks like. All right. Now I'm going to explain all this gradually and it will make sense. Okay. This is just a simple example, and this is just an explanation for everything you can see here. All right. So if you come down here, you see another example I used here, right? If you notice, there's a difference. This just has one row, another row with sub properties. Okay. There are two properties, version and services. Okay. And the services has other properties embedded inside of it. That's just what you should know for now. Okay. Now, if you scroll down, you see another example. You will see we have version and then we have services. Now, unlike the previous first example, this service has two services. We have front end and we have back end. Okay. I'll scroll up again so you see this. This example has only one service, and the name of the service is called web. So if you run this, it's going to work, but we'll get to that point. Okay, it's going to work now. But if you come down here, you will see another example that has two services. Now the name of the service does not matter, but best practice, always use a descriptive name. Okay, so anybody that is on your team as a DevOps engineer will be able to understand your code, okay, without sweating. Okay, so this is front end and then this is back end. You understand? So these are two services. All right, don't worry about what is inside here. We will explain as we make progress. Okay, now that's the explanation. So the first thing I want to do before we practice this example is to set up our environment. Okay, if I revert back to what is it called, my slides, you will notice okay, there's so many things here, so many things. So you just notice that this is Docker Compose, and I said that Docker Compose is a tool for defining and running multi-container. Once you see the word multi-container, it means more than one container, all right? By default, two containers can communicate. Two containers can communicate. In other words, they are in the same network, all right? Don't worry, we'll understand all this, all right? So this with Compose, you use a YAML file, okay? In other words, this syntax, this layout is what we call YAML, okay? Just like if you've done JavaScript before, you know, JavaScript syntax. So this is a YAML syntax. This is the spelling YAML, okay? Sometimes for short, is this YML, okay? YAML, all right? So the same way your JavaScript file can also be called JS. I hope that makes sense, right? So different kinds of file, C# files, Python files, all right? So this is written in a syntax we call YAML, okay? Now, we also have another format we call JSON, all right? If you've not learned this before, do not worry. As you progress in your journey as a DevOps engineer, you will be able to relate with some of these examples, okay? Let's just focus on it contextually. Now, let's set up our environment. Now we've understood what Docker Compose is. We've known that it's a tool that can be used to create multi-containers, and it's always written in a YAML file, which we can use to configure our application services. Then with a single command, just running a single command like this, Docker Compose up, we will be able to create and start all the services from our configurations. You understand? It will make more sense as we progress. Okay? Now, the first thing I want to do is to set up an environment. Okay? Now, if I want to, I can literally install Docker. If I go here and click Docker, if I click Docker here, if I type Docker here, now, you all know on this call, if you're on this call, right, there's a tool called Docker Desktop, right? If you're using Mac, if you're using Windows, if you're using Linux, whichever environment you're using, right, you can set up Docker by installing some tools. One of them is called Docker Desktop, okay? So if I click on Docker Desktop right now, I will be able to install these tools based on my platform, right? Now, I think I'm sure I already have Docker. Not sure. Let me see. Okay. I think I already have it here. This is Docker Desktop. All right. Now, it's possible that some of you do not have Docker Desktop on your computer. All right. And that's fine, because I want us to have seamless experience and everybody to practice the same thing, where I'm going to use different platforms. Okay. Now, but Docker is very, very interesting. Okay. Very, very interesting. Imagine having more than 1 billion downloads every month. More than 1 billion Docker containers are downloaded every month. That is to tell you that Docker is very, very important. And as a DevOps engineer, if you do not have good understanding of Docker, you will be cheated. Let me put it that way. Okay, you will not be able to contribute effectively. In as much as you can still do other things, I've seen people who work and they do not have need for, they don't use Docker, they don't do any containerization or use microservices, but it's very, very important. Okay, so because we want to install and do a lot of things, if I just come to Google and type Docker Compose, okay, Docker Compose on Google, you will see this. If you click here, you're going to see different kinds of things, right? And it's going to show you a lot of things you can do to install Docker Compose, right? Now, if I click on this to install Docker Compose, you're going to see a lot of things here. Is that true? If I click on Linux, you're going to see the instructions too, okay? And so on and so forth. So many interesting things. Now, so that we can maximize time, if you're using AWS EC2 instance, it's fine. I'll show you what you're going to do, all right? if you're using what is it called, VirtualBox, it's fine. I'll show you what you're going to do. So let's just click here and say Killer Coder. Let me see. In case you've not used this platform before, I'm going to share the link so that you'll be able to use this to practice perhaps. Okay, I've shared it. So if I come here and type Docker is already installed on this. Let me reduce the font. So you see Docker is already installed. If I type Docker space -- version, you see Docker is already installed. Now, on my AWS EC2 instance, if I type Docker, you will notice that Docker is not here. Is that true? But this is a simple Ubuntu instance. Now, of course, if I just one way, if you just type Docker, it will tell you what to do to install Docker easily. Okay, so if you use this, I'm sure you should be able to get Docker installed. Okay, so I will just use this and install Docker on this server. I hope this is simple. Everybody already know how to do this. So I will just paste this and put the -y flag and hit enter. All right. Now, of course, I'm supposed to have updated this server, but it's updated. In case you're just spinning up a new EC2 instance, make sure you've updated the instance and you have Docker installed. So while this is working here, this is working here. Now, the one I will be using for this class, is going to be on my GitHub repository. Okay. Now, I have so many GitHub repository, but I'll just be using this one. Okay. So if you watch here, this is a repository. I'm going to share this with everybody so that you will see some of the commands I will be using. If you click on this called commands.md, you literally see a lot of commands here. I don't know why this was not arranged. I guess I was running. I was so fast. I was okay, let's see. I was just rushing so that I can meet up with the class. So I didn't format this properly. So it's fine. Now, friends, for the sake of this class, I will just create a simple, what is it called? Repository. Okay? Or do I use this? Yes, it's fine. I can use this repository. Okay? So if you have a GitHub repository, okay, there's something I want to show you that's very important. Some of you might know how to use this already. Now, so that we have all the tools in one place. Okay, I will click on this. Okay, click on this. Friends, can you see code space? You may see local. This is what some of you will see. Is that true? Just okay, this is what you should do. Just go to your GitHub, create any repository. All right, I'll wait for you all so that we'll be on the same page. All right, let me know if you've done it. I'll just give you 2 minutes. Just go to your GitHub, create a Docker repository or create any repository or any one you have of your choice. Once you get there, let me know. If I can get 5 yeses, I will continue. Let me know once you're done if you're following. Okay? Else, if you want me to continue, just let me know so we can continue as fast as possible. Okay, I have 1 yes, created 2, 3, okay. I just need 5, so I'll be sure. I can move on with this, but 4. Great, thank you guys. I need 1 more. Okay, great, thank you everybody. So if you watch the screen, you will notice that I am in a simple Docker repository, right? Now, if I click here, right? We have local tab. We have another tab called code spaces. Local and what? Code spaces. Now, a lot of you are familiar with VS Code. Is that true? And you know VS Code is owned by Microsoft. And of course, if you don't know, Microsoft also owns GitHub, the platform. Okay, so there's a lot of integration. Okay, so code space is just like having your own workspace in the cloud or your own environment in the cloud. Okay, so now this is what I did. I just click here. All right, so I will click on this, create code space on main branch. This is the branch. What I'm working on is on the main branch. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So I'll click on this right now. Okay, so I'm going to wait for a few minutes or seconds, depending on how fast my internet is. So I'm going to wait for a few minutes and okay. All right, so we're waiting for this. All right. Has anybody launched theirs? Perhaps it's a network thing for me. I don't know. If you've launched yours, let me know. So mine is taking a lot more time. So oh, great, 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 Ajibadi, great. Oh, awesome. I'm wondering why mine is taking time. Okay. Oh, oh, this is taking time. My God, it's not nice. Okay, so I'll just multitask, right? So friends, on this platform, okay, this is me trying to install Docker. If you remember, friends. Okay, good. Mine is launched. Okay, so it literally is the same environment like what is it called? Like your VS Code, okay? And everybody on this call should know that VS Code is a code editor, right? Now, friends, while this is booting up properly, watch this. Now, if you remember, if I type Docker here and hit enter, you will see this. It's working, right? Now, but if let's clear the screen. If I try to do something like Docker space info. Now, what you see here is it just gives me client information and it gives me error on this. Now, ideally, you're supposed to be root to be able to work with Docker. In other words, the user that has permission to communicate with the Docker server should be the root user. Sometimes, as a DevOps engineer, you always see people do something like user mode -AG Docker, then Ubuntu. Sometimes you see something like this. Now, what this command simply means is this user mode is a Linux command that is used to, I want to modify a user called Ubuntu. I'm currently using Ubuntu. If you're using any other user, that's what you use here. Now, there's a group called Docker. Let me press Ctrl C again so you see what I mean. If I type groups, okay, for now, there's a file called cat. I hope I'm not too fast. Let me know, please. /sudo cat. There's a file called /etc password. No, okay. It should be groups, right? groups. Now, if you do this, you see all the groups that are available on this computer system. Okay. If you're wondering, this is what I typed, /etc/group. And if you look at the bottom, you can literally just see that we have something called Docker. Okay. So if you do this, you'll see there's a group called Docker. So because we installed Docker, by default, there is a group called Docker. So any user you add to the group called Docker, that user will be able to use the Docker application. I hope that makes sense. Now, if I type ps-aux, you'll see a lot of processes running. Okay. Now, if I do this and do this and do the grep and say Docker, you will notice that the Docker is currently running, but it is using what? Root. Okay, to run. Good. So that is why when you type Docker info, you will not be able to access the server. Now, but if I do sudo bang bang, of course, it's like this sudo bang bang is like trying to run the previous command, but putting sudo in front of it. So, but let me just keep it simple, right? So I'll just do sudo docker info. Okay. So if I do this, did you see there's no error? Now, the most important thing I want you to see after I run that docker info is this. I saw a lot of information. The most important thing is we can see that on this server, 0 containers are running, 0 is paused, 0 is stopped, no images, you understand? And a whole lot more, you understand? Good. Now, if I type docker -compose and type --version, this is what you will see, that is not found. So you can still do the same thing to install Docker Compose. I hope that makes sense to everybody. So I'm showing us these things so that as a DevOps engineer, a lot of times you will be spinning up instances and doing some orchestration or installation. When we get to Jenkins and you will need to set up some pipelines and do some things, if you don't know how to install these things, when you start reading some documentation, it could be overwhelming for you. I want to be sure that we have all these basics sorted out. That's why I'm mentioning it, okay? Before I go into using an environment that already has everything. So if you see this, my code space now, if I just come here and type Docker, okay, this is lagging. Okay, so if I come here and say version, I don't know why it's taking time. Oh. No, this is not what I want. So if you notice, now you didn't see me installing Docker, did you? No, I didn't install Docker. So how come Docker is working here? That's the benefit of using code spaces. I hope that makes sense. Okay, yes, I will share my repo later, okay? But friends, it doesn't matter the repo you use, okay? It doesn't matter the repo you use. That was why I asked us to create our own repo. And if you create your own repo and just click on this, you don't even need to create any file. Once you just click on code space and launch it, you are good to go. You'll be able to see all these things. That is why if you watch at the top here, it tells you that welcome to code space, that it includes runtimes and tools for Python, Node.js, Docker, and more. So a lot of times when you are practicing something as a DevOps engineer, you don't have time to start setting up some things and you want to be working with your code on GitHub, you can literally use code spaces. I hope that makes sense. All right, so I'm going to type clear. So, and all right, so I'm trying to increase the font size, but okay, good. It's working for me now. Good. All right, good. So, friends, let's close this. I don't need this. All right, so now remember the sample that I have here. Okay, this is our first example, and I'm going to explain this so that I'll type it in simple command so you see. So don't worry about these files you see here, friends. Okay, please do not worry about these files. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so I'm just going to click on plus and create a simple file. Okay, now I'm just going to call it sample dash compose dash file. Did you see that? Sample dash compose dash file. Now, if I hit .yaml, this is what you see, right? If I hit enter, it's going to create that file for me. Now, friends, the first thing I want you to understand when you are creating a Docker Compose file, okay, there is a format. There are what we call supported name files. If you don't create it with now this is the best way to create a Docker Compose file. The name should actually be sorry. So if I wanted to create a file here, right? Let me just use terminal to create it. If I type ls, you see these same files here are the same files here. Now, normally, if I want to create a Docker Compose file, I've created one file here. Is it not true? And I gave it .yaml. Now, let me create another file using the best practice. I'll use touch command and say the name of the file should be Docker, right? And compose.yml. Okay? So either it's YML or YAML, it doesn't matter. If I hit enter, of course, it's going to create the file. Can we see it here? Beautiful. Now, anything I do inside this sample file, I'll be doing it inside here. So I think I will just open both of them together. Okay. Now, all right. Do you want to install Docker extensions? Okay. Yes, let's do that. So, friends, if you get this kind of notification, just click on install. Okay. I would have said no, but okay, let me not install it. But if you get it, just click on yes. Okay. I know it's going to be making the life easier for me, but let me just say no for now. All right. So I'll just click here. Now, the first thing we want to do to create a Docker compose file is to use what we call version. Okay. Now, before I move further, let me show you something. All right. Docker compose file. So compose file, yeah. Okay, let me see. No, this is not what I'm looking for. All right, let me go back. Docker compose. Okay, so the most important thing I want to just show us there is this. The most important thing I want to just show you is that the current version of Docker compose file is 3.8. I think we saw that here. Let me see. From July 2023, compose version 1. So this is V1, this is V2. I think the latest version is version 3 point something. Let me see. I was trying to find that. Let me just type Docker compose. And okay, let's see. Yeah, so this is the latest version, as you can see up here, 3.8. You understand? So if you watch my notes here, right, you will see version, column, space, and you see 3 here. Okay. Now, but the latest version is what? 3.8. So if I come here and do version and do this and put quote. Now, if you don't put this quote and just put 3.8, Docker is going to treat this as a number and not as Docker compose version. Okay, that's the reason why we usually put quotes. All right. So I'm going to do this. Now, if I hit enter, the next thing you will literally see there is services. Now, what does services mean? I want you to see this word services as a load balancer. Friends, I want us to see this word services as what? A load balancer. If you're working with what is it called? Docker Compose, I want you to have the concept of something we call two-tier architecture. I'll say it again. I want you to consider something we call two-tier architecture. Now, by two-tier architecture, what do I mean, right? Okay, what do I mean? Imagine we have front end, and imagine we also have back end. Okay, you all know that we can have a computer here, right? And say this is our front end, right? And this is our back end computer. Okay, so when you visit Facebook, or maybe you visit a website, right? The UI you interact with, the first point of call is what we call the front end. Okay, now where you store informations is what we call the back end. I hope that makes sense. All right, so just for now, there are a lot of architecture. We call it n-tier architecture. There's two-tier, there's three-tier, there's four-tier, and so on and so forth. We even have single page applications, but I don't want to confuse you now. Let's keep it very simple. Friends, this is a simple front-end application. Okay, now we're going to create, if you create a container, the first thing you want people to do is to be able to access that container. Is it not true? Now, one of the things that what is it called? One of the things that Docker Compose is going to do for you is that Docker Compose can help you to scale your containers. When we practiced in the last class on how we can Dockerize our application, friends, do you remember that when you create your Docker container, your, what is it called? Your Node.js application or your Python application, remember, if somebody is trying to visit that application, right? Do you know that as the traffic increases, in other words, imagine it's Black Friday, right? And that your container application is serving a website that customers are buying the items. Do you know that the more people visit, the more traffic goes into that your application endpoint, right? Your container have enough memory to be able to manage the load, and by so doing, your application will crash. Do you understand? Now, what do you do as a Docker engineer or as a DevOps engineer? That is where Docker Compose comes in. One of the practical use cases of Docker Compose is for scaling. Okay, for some people call it auto scaling. So you can upscale and you can upsize and downsize. People use different terminologies for it. The most important thing is that you can use Docker Compose to specify the number of if I click on this, I can create another container. If I, with one command, I will create another container as the traffic is coming up. Do you understand? So it's the same thing with this. So I want you to see Docker Compose as what? Services. Okay, I want you to see that service rather as what we call load balancer. Friends, do you remember what I mean? Let me click here. Let me do this. SVC. Yes, sir. No. Okay. Okay, let me just do this. SVC. So Okay, good. So, oh, I don't know why this is not working as I want it to. Really see. Okay, good. So, okay, so now each time you see this word here, this services here, okay, I want you to see it as a load balancer, right? So what you will be doing is this: anytime traffic is coming, it's coming into the services, okay? So when you have containers inside here, one container, another container, another container, okay? Each time you specify this word service, as traffic is coming in through this service, it is the service that's responsible for directing it to the container. So you are not going directly to the container, but you are going through the service. And that is why we have something like this service. So if you have two services, you're going to specify two services here. Okay? So I just want us to understand something like this, at least for now. Now let's go back to this. Now, if I click on this, I'll hit enter and hit this. Now, I put a column here and I put this. If I need to indent this, indentation is very important. I'll hit enter. Okay. Now, sometimes what you will see is front end. Okay. Another time you will see back end, and then you may see database. Sometimes these are the three services you will see for a three-tier architecture. Okay. If you're using Docker Compose. Okay. Sometimes you may not see this. Sometimes people can come with different names like web. Some people will call the backend API, and then they may call the database DB. You understand? So I don't want you to bother about these names you see here. Okay. Just know that this name is referring to what your Docker will be, your Docker image or container will be. Okay. So this is referring to each service. All right. Now, having understood that, let's come here. Let's copy this now. Okay. Now we've understood this simple illustration. I'm going to highlight this and paste this here. So if you watch, it's the same thing. Is it true? It's the same thing. I'm just going to come here and put 3.8. Is that true? And this tells you that this is the latest Docker Compose version. Services, we call it web. Is that true? Now, some of you are saying this word build. Now, do you remember how you build your Docker images? If you remember, you will know that what you do is Docker image build -t. You give it a tag name, then use the dot to specify where it is. So this build and space dot is just saying, I want you to build any Docker file you see there. Okay. Now this ports you see here is just saying, okay, this is the port I want to give it. So this is the port for the external, okay, external, and this is for the container itself, okay? This is for the host, this is for the container, all right? Now, let me know if you're confused. I will explain again so it's make more sense. Now,
Okay, so actually, I wanted to ask something, please.
Go ahead, please.
How many tier architecture is this? Is it just one? Since I'm seeing only web there.
I can hear you clearly. You see?
Okay, I wanted to ask, like, how many tier architecture? You made mention about
Okay,
how we.
I was just using an illustration. I actually have something here, right? If you watch here, I have something on a WordPress here. I would have literally just copied and paste this and start showing you how it works. But if you don't understand how each of these things works independently, you may not be able to do it. So looking at this now, if you can see, this is DB, this is WordPress. Is it not true? So this is
Okay,
two-tier
I get it.
architecture. I don't know if you
I understand.
understand.
Yeah, I get it.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Now, so if we have something like this is literally telling us to build something like this. Is it not true? Now, we don't have any Docker file here. So if I run this, this will not work. But let us test this first of all. So I'm saving this. Remember, I told you that I'm going to practice whatever is here. I'll put it here and I will explain why. So now that we have two files, this is what I'm going to do. If I type docker-compose and put the word up. Now, oh God, I want to do something. If I do up, it's going to pick this one instead of this one. So this is what I'm going to do. I'll rename this file quickly. Rename. I'll put underscore in front of it. Don't worry. I'll explain what I'm doing later. Okay. I just don't want it to pick it in any way. Yeah. Okay, good. So now immediately I say Docker compose, right? Now, there are a lot of things that come up with this. Docker compose, if you do -- help, you see a lot of commands that comes with it. Okay. Now, the same thing we do with our Docker run or Docker build, right, is the same thing we can use with Docker compose, friends. Okay, is this exactly the same thing we can do now? But I'm going to do this Docker compose. Now, the up command is what we use to start the, what is it called? To start the Docker, to start this files we just created. So if I come and say Docker compose up, now sometimes you will see some people put -d. Okay, -d is the same thing for detach. If you've done we've done the basics already. Is it not true? We've done the basics. So if I put this -d, I'm supposed to run this Docker compose in detachable mode. Now, sometimes you may also see --build. Okay. Now, of course, this --build is to rebuild it in case if you make any change, it will rebuild it again. But for now, I'll keep it very simple like this. So if I hit enter, this is what you see. The first error you will see is to tell you that it cannot find any file to build. Why? Because it doesn't know these files here. See what it's telling you. These are the supported files. docker-compose.yaml. Did you understand? docker-compose.yaml or compose.yaml. So these are the favorite files it supports. So even though we have something like this, what is it called? sample-compose.file.yaml, and the files inside is working, it couldn't recognize it. The only way to get it to work is you must use the -f command to specify the file. Does that make sense? Now that I have specified the file, if I try to do I've specified it and I'll put up. Did you see that? Then I'll put -d, of course, for detach mode. Is it true? Good. So if I hit enter, did you notice something? First of all, let's check what it tells me. It said builds, recreates, starts, and attach unless they are already running. This command also. So at this point, right, it cannot be able to find what is it called? It doesn't even have what is it called? Any Docker file. If you watch here, build and you see dots, we don't have any Docker file here. It was trying to build a Docker file, but it doesn't see any Docker file here. That's why this dot is here. Do you understand? Now, watch what I'm going to do if I change this thing to images. If I change this thing to images and put just Nginx here, okay? If I put Nginx and put Alpine, I want to reduce the size of the image. This is just what I did here. Now, of course, you know that if I type Docker images, there is no image on this server, right? Now, but if I run this, it's going to go online from Docker Hub to pull down the image. Okay, this Nginx. Alpine is just a tag version for Nginx, like a limited version, a reduced size of Nginx. Okay, so if I run the previous command, which is this, and I hit enter. So let's see something. Let me be sure that I'm positioning the tags properly. Let's see. Okay. Let's remove this. Okay. Oh. Okay. So, friends, did you notice something? It's telling us it's invalid because unsupported configuration file. Okay, hold on. Images. Okay. Let's see. I hope I didn't make any mistake here. Okay, it's image and not images. Thank you. I'll remove this. okay, and press the up arrow key and hit enter. No such service as up. Okay, I have two of them. All right, so -D for detach and then up. Okay, sorry. Up and -D. All right, so friends, if you see it's working, right? Docker compose, I specified the file, then the up command is to ignite it. Do you understand? -D is just to run it in detach mode. Please, do you understand? And if you watch here, you will see that this is done. This is done. Let me know if you're confused. This is just what I ran here. Docker-compose -F is to specify the file, which is this. Is it not true? The up command is to start the application, to start the what is it called? To run this file that is here. Okay. So it will build and it will start it. Okay. So, and if you watch here, you see -D, which means it should run it in detach mode. If you notice, it came back here for me to continue working. If I didn't put this detach mode, you will notice that it will run the application and I cannot do anything except I press Ctrl+C. So friends, if you remember, if you do Docker images now, can you see we have an Nginx application running? And I use Alpine because I want it to be small and you can see the size. If you try removing this Alpine, you notice that the size is very small. So how can we access this our application now? Let's try. So if you just use coil command and say, okay, let's just, so first of all, the first thing I want to do is this to check, let's check the, what is it called? Docker compose PS. If you do this, no configuration file, sorry. Docker-compose, sorry. Let's see. Okay, sorry. Docker-compose, and let's do this. Okay. So the PS is supposed to work. So let's see. This is supposed to work with this PS. So I'm wondering why it's not working, but let's just do this. Let's see. Okay, it's fine. So one of the problems we can literally observe right now is that because we are not using this default file the way it should be, we are getting a lot of errors. So this is what I'm going to do. First of all, let me type Docker images. And if you look here, you see Docker images working. But if I say Docker images and no, let's check if there's any container running and do Docker container PS.
Sorry, please, if you're not, sorry, please, I think someone is unmuted. Maybe you should just mute.
Okay.
There's a background noise coming from somewhere. Okay, thank you.
All right, friends. So if we watch here, you see Docker container PS will tell us that there's something currently running. Is it not true? And of course, if we test this on our application using this, it will be able to confirm that it's working, right? Now, so if I, what I wanted to do is, let's see. So since we have this container running, what I want to do is this. I want to change this thing now to this file. So I'll come here, rename this. Okay. All right, good. So this is the best practice. Always just have this file like this, okay? Or you use any of this file that is here. All right, so let me stop that one that's running. But first of all, you all can see that we have this Docker. When we run Docker PS, you can see there's a container available here. One container is running. So if I had done something like this, Docker compose and I did something like, I get this. This is the container image, right? I paste this here. Why is it not pasting? Allow, okay. Okay, so okay, I didn't give this is the container ID. This is the container ID I'm trying to copy, but I will just go with the name. This is the name, okay? Now, I will just come here and say Docker compose, and you do this, Docker underscore web underscore 1. If I do this and say dash dash scale, did you see this? If I do this and do equal to and put 3, once you do something like this, okay, hold on. So this is the flag here, the scale command. Now the scale command is what's going to help you to increase the number of containers that you want. If you remember this illustration that I have here, okay, you create one container, okay? If you want to have more than one container, the Docker this scale command is what we're going to use. So let me see. I hope I'm not missing this. Okay. Dash dash scale equal to 3. Hold on. All right. Let me clear the screen. So now I'll take it slowly so that I don't confuse anybody. The most important thing is this. We understood this. Okay. Now, if you watch this, this is different kinds of this is how an application will work in real time. What I was trying to do here is to show you how we can increase this application, these containers, if we want to create multiple of this container application. You understand? That was what I was trying to do by using the scale command. Now I think I'm mixing it somewhere. Now, but before then, let me show you something. So on your computer system, if you do Docker images, or no, Docker containers, right? Inspect, because we already have a container running, right? Inspect, and the name of our container is I think, let me see if it wants me to. Docker is not a Docker command. It's okay, Docker container. So it wants me to specify the name of the container ID. And if I do Docker container and PS, right? You will literally see the name of what is it called? The name of the container. So this is the ID of the container that is currently running. Okay. Of course, if I use the -A, you will see the full information. That -Q is just to get the ID only, which is what I did here. But this last information here is the name of this container that is currently running, right? So if we want to get more information about this container that is running, all I need to do is to say Docker inspect, then the name, sorry. Now, sometimes we work with Docker inspect, it will work, but I love keeping it this way, Docker container, okay? This container, I want to inspect it, okay? And then what's the name of the ID? Docker underscore web underscore 1. If I hit enter, this is what you will see. You see a lot of information there, a whole lot of information. Now, the most important thing is that we can see an IP address there. So this is the IP address for this particular, what is it called? This container that is running. Okay, so, and if, let's do this. Let's reduce this. Let's collapse it. So if I say local, no, it's not going to. No, I don't expect this to work. Hold on. So there's a way we usually view this using Docker Compose. Let me see. Forward a port. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I hit enter and say, let's see. Okay. Okay. So if I do this, copy local address, come here and paste this and hit enter. Good. So, friends, did you notice what happened? In case you're wondering, what did I do? This is where we were before. Is it true? Can you see this is ports? All I did was to click on this port. And then I click on add port and I specify the port that I said that this application can be accessed. Immediately I type the port inside here and click add port. It generated a local IP for me. All right. So once I clicked on this to copy it, I pasted it here. And there we can see that our application is running. Please, do we understand this so far? Do we understand this? Let me know if you understood what I've done so far. Go ahead, Mr. Eddie, go ahead. You can unmute yourself if you have a question. Okay, that's fine. All right, so now there's something, let me be sure that I'm not missing it. Docker Compose Scale. Yeah, sir. Yeah. Let me be sure that I'm not missing it. No. So this can work also, but I don't want to use it this way. If I use this, this should work. So, but what I want to do is this Docker scale command. All right. So let's see. Okay, so this is it. Docker dash compose up dash d dash dash scale, then the name of the service, then equal to 5. Okay, I think I got it now. That was exactly what happened that time, but okay. So friends, this is what I want to do. So if you notice now, there's only one container that is running. Is it not true? Let's clear and confirm. Sorry, clear and confirm. So if we do, this is what we see. Only one container is running. So if I come here and say Docker, right? Compose. Now, of course, if I say up, it's not going to see this file again. Okay, but because I've corrected this one to see this file. Okay, so but this is what I want to do. I can come here also and put a name called container name. Did you see this? I can do container and give it a name and say I want the name to be C1. Do you understand? Now, if I come here and say Docker compose up, right? Dash D. Okay. Now, if I do this, let's see. Friends, did you notice something? Is building it without specifying. It was able to see this. Now, but we can notice that it failed. It said open no such file or directory. Okay. Now, I think there's a problem somewhere. I think this is because this could be a capacity issue. Service well failed to build this. Let's see. Docker images. Okay, I still have the image. And so this is what I specified. Just this alone was supposed to work. Okay, I didn't need to do any special -f, then the name of the file. Okay, now normally just doing this will trigger this. Okay, it will run this particular service for me now, but for some weird reason it's failing, and this is what I'm getting. Please, those of you trying it, please check and let me know if it works for you. Okay, it could be a size issue, or let me just check this. Okay, so this is how I solve things in real world. I copy the error message as a DevOps engineer. I copied the error message and I pasted it on Google. So I'm trying to see what's happening. So let me check the first result and let's see what happens. All right, so I love going to the bottom. Hopefully I'll see the most updated response. Okay, so let's see. Please ensure you are in the correct directory where your Docker file is present. Okay, I didn't want it to work with that. It's looking for a Docker file, but I don't want it to work with the Docker file. I know what's happening. Docker file. So it's looking for a Docker file here. Now, what I expected it to do, okay, what I'm going to do, let me remove just this. Let me use just Nginx and see what's going to happen. Okay, I'll save. It's already saved. Press the up arrow key and hit enter. Let's see. It's giving me the same error. No such file or directory. Okay. This is weird. It's supposed to work now, but another way I can resolve this literally is this. It's looking for, if you check this file that I have here, right? You will notice that I use something like build and I put dots here. It's looking for a Docker file. You understand? The Docker file we're going to build. If you remember the way we did our Node.js application and maybe our Python application, right? That Docker file is what it's looking for. You understand? But that is still supposed to work with or without the Docker file. You understand? So this is what it's looking for. It's looking for a Docker file, right? But I don't need it to use a Docker file. That's why I'm surprised that it's not working. This is strange. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Daniel. Are we all getting the same error?
Yeah, sorry. Is it because maybe you edited, maybe it's looking at the second Docker Compose file? So,
no, I don't think so, because I mean, if I had specified the file here, you would have seen it. But still, let me just delete this one anyway. This sample one. Let's see if it's going to recognize it. You understand?
okay.
Let's delete it. Because if you look at the code, there's no problem there. You see, it's still failing. Service web failed to build. Build failed. Okay, let's see. It's looking for a Docker file, and we do not need a Docker file. Ideally, okay. Oh, I think I see the issue here.
Yeah, I think it was using this file and not the
it was using this file. Yeah. Okay, good. So this is supposed to be image, and then what we have here is, friends, please, do we all understand what's happening here? So when we run this file, it's looking for a Docker file. When you say build, what am I supposed to build? It's looking for the Docker file. If I mistakenly, let me not use the word mistakenly, right? So if I click here and create a file called Docker file, did you see this? Let's leave this Docker file empty. Just leave it empty and see what's going to happen. So if I run this command now and hit enter, what's going to happen? What did you see here? Cannot be empty. The error message has changed. Friends, do you understand? So this build space dot is like what am I'm supposed to build a Docker file. Okay, so it's looking for it in a particular location. Okay, and I specified a Docker file, but there was nothing there. You see that? So if I come here and say from, and maybe I use the word from Alpine, and I use something like run, I just say touch and say test.log. This is a simple Docker file I'm creating here, right? So imagine what's going to happen here when I do this and I hit enter. Did you see what's happening? It's building it. So I specified something here and it's building it and it's done. So if I come and do Docker, sorry, okay. So if I click here and say Docker compose PS. Now there's no let's see, PSLS will still work. They are literally the same command now, but if I say PS-A, it will tell me because it has exited. There was nothing. This operation has, this container ran and exited. If you check the logs, you're going to notice that's what happened. Okay, now normally this is not what I want to do. Okay, now I will just change this thing just for this purpose of this illustration. I'll change this to image, right? And I'll change this to Nginx. Did you see that? I'll use my Alpine, right? And if I do this now and run this command, sorry, let me clear the commands line so we don't get confused. Now, close this. So docker-compose up-d. Did you see that? Now, so if I hit enter, what's going to happen? Did you see? It's done. Now, if you notice, it did it very fast. This is simply because it has built the image before. Okay? If I didn't want it to build it, it should start from the scratch. All I will do is to come here and say, if I come and put the flag --build and hit enter, this is up to date because of course I've not added anything anyway. You understand? But if I add any new change, once this --build file is there, it will build it from scratch. Now, but that's not my focus. My focus is in the scale. So if I do --scale and do this, I'll say the name of the service is web. Is it not true? Web is equal to 3. So if I hit enter, what did you see here? Okay, let's see. Host is already in use by another container. Let's see. Okay. I think it's the port. This port is already being in use. So let me just terminate it. So this is what I'm going to do. Let's change this to 8080. And I'll come here and say, I want this to use a container with the name C1. And let's do this. All right, so it's invalid. Okay, containers. Let's see. I hope. All right. Okay. I should be missing the name, but let's just do without that. Host is already in use by another container. Let's see. Docker Web 2. Can I start? Let's see. Okay. Control C. --build. So if you notice, it's working for some of them, but it's failing for some of them. Now this is weird because I think it's because I am using this guy. I would have just stuck to my Ubuntu environment. The web service specifies a port on the host. If multiple containers for the service are created on a single host, the port will crash. No, it's not supposed to crash. It's not supposed to crash. Okay. Okay. I know I can fix this, but it's just time that's the challenge now. So, friends, use Docker compose ps-a to view the exited container, then remove the container using the port. Yes, I can remove it, but it will not achieve what I want to do. It will not achieve what I want to do. So if you notice, it's using the same service. It's not giving me what I want. Let's see. Created up. So it's only one of them that is up right now, and which is the first one. So this is created. Okay, so let's see. This is 1, 2, 3. So let's see what's happening first of all. Hold on, let me check something. So if I come here and add this port 8080 and do this, let's see. Just click on this. So it's actually working. Ignore that error. It's actually working. So the only thing there is that we have 3 containers. If you watch Docker compose ps-a, if you watch this, you will notice that this is up, right? This is up, this is up. Docker underscore web 1, Docker underscore web 2, Docker underscore web 3. Do you understand? This is the 3 of them. So I think it was trying to do something else, and then that 4th one was now throwing the error. That was why it exited it. So if you watch here, literally you will see Docker underscore web 1, web 2, web 3. So these 3 things you see here are the 3 because we use the Docker scale command, and that was why we were able to scale it. So these 3 containers, they are literally working, and if you notice, there's no difference here. It's because they are all mapped to the same port. So even if you try to terminate one of these containers, the other containers will still be what is it called? It will still be able to access the Nginx. So the most important thing I want us to just take from this is how a simple Docker compose file looks like. You understand? If I go back to this is how you can connect a simple one. This is front end. This is a back end. Now, let's do this and wrap it up. So if I come here, I'm going to copy and paste something I have done already because of time. I'll explain what I am doing there. I'll paste this here. So if you watch here, this is the same thing that we have already, okay? This is the same thing we've watched before. The only difference is this: we are trying to create a service and we called one DB. We're trying to create another service and we call it WordPress, right? Now, if you see here, we specify that the image should be this. If the image does not exist, it will download it. Now, I don't know. So, okay, on this call, I want to ask, do we all know how a volume work and a network, how it works? Because for you to be able to understand how Docker Compose works, you will be able to you must understand how Docker volumes and Docker network works. You understand? A Docker volume is just okay, let me see if I can quickly just let me see. Okay. Play. Now, you all know that if I do Docker image, right? Or if, let me just run a container quickly. If I say Docker container, right? Run, and if I want to run a container, and if I say -d for it to detach, and I want to give it a name, I want it to be test, and so if I come here and say I want it to be Okay, so let's just use Nginx. Or do I use Nginx or Apache? Let me see if I can use Apache too. Alpine. All right, so now if I do this, let me see. Okay. Now the reason for this is because that Apache it's not available locally on my computer. It's supposed to go to Docker Hub and download it. But I noticed that this Apache 2 is not, you need to log into your Docker Hub to be able to work with it. So if I click on Docker login, it will ask me for my password. Okay. What Docker Hub is the same thing as what your, what is it called? Your GitHub is. Okay. All your Docker images can be uploaded to this location. All your Docker images can be uploaded to this location. I hope that makes sense. So this is what a Docker Hub looks like for those of you that may not know. Okay, so create an account here and you can push your images here. All right. So what I was trying to do was to, if you come here and search for Apache 2. Okay, so this is Apache 2. So I think I was getting it wrong. So if we click on this, this should be the full name, Ubuntu/Apache 2. So let me see if I come here and update this thing and say Ubuntu/Apache 2. Okay. Another way you can check it is by clicking on tags, and you'll be able to see all the tags. This is latest. Did you see the way it is? This is it. So I'm sure there's Alpine. If you search somewhere here, Control F. For some of you that have not done, that may not know what Apache is, as a DevOps engineer, Apache is a web server, just like Nginx is a web server. Okay, so I'm sure this should work, but let's see. Okay, manifest unknown. Okay, let me remove Alpine and see. Okay, you see, it's trying to pull it down, which means there's no tag. There's no tag called Alpine. The only tag there is latest. And that is why when I did this, all it did was to download. So if I do Docker images now, you'll be able to see this Ubuntu/Apache 2. And if you see the tag there is what? Latest. Now, friends, did you notice that I don't need to, I never need, okay, let me not use the wrong word. I didn't need to download this before running it. Just Docker container run, and then specifying the right name, I was able to get it down, right? Now, so if you watch here, what was I trying to do? I was trying to show us something. You see this Apache 2. Let's go into this Apache 2, right? If I want to go into it, what do? I will say Docker container, right? And then we'll use the exec command. Now, some of you might be used to just using Docker space exec. For me, what makes it easier is I know anytime I'm referring to Docker containers, I'm referring to Docker containers. If I'm referring to Docker images, I'm referring to Docker images. It makes it easier for you to learn. You know, once you see Docker container, it means you are referring to the container. Of course, you can do Docker space exec. It will still work. You understand? But when you do it like this, for me, it works. So let me just say Docker PS, and this is what we have, right? So this one is running. So, and the name of the container is what? Test. Is it true? So I will come here and say Docker exec, and -I is for interactive, -T is for terminal, teletype, the terminal. Now I want to go into that test container using, so if I just type ls, it should be able to show me all the directories there. If I type ll instead of ls, okay, it doesn't accept ll, so let me use ls-a. Okay, you can see all the directories inside that container. I want to believe this is not so difficult for anybody, right? Now, but that's not what I want to do. I want to show you that there's something we call log files. Okay, sometimes you may want the file that is available inside your container. As a web server, okay, there are files sometimes you want to be stored inside your container. Okay, most web server works with logs. Okay, and if you don't want to, if you delete or remove that container, you will lose the log files of that container. So sometimes what we do is to create a volume, and that volume is like a drive, right? And we will map the volume externally to the what is it called, to the container. So let me show you what I mean by this. So if I come here and do this now, if I just put bash here, okay, I can use sh. It will also let me in. So let me just use bash. I hope this is not confusing anybody. Docker container exec -it interactively. I want to interact with this container. Test is the name of the container. Now bash is the terminal. So if I hit enter, did you notice this has changed? So I'm inside that container. So if I type ls, you notice this is what we have. Now, but there's a directory called var. So if you cd into the var directory and type ls, you'll notice that there's a folder called log, right? So if I cd into the log, if you type ls, you will see all the log files are usually stored here. Let's move into the Apache 2. cd into Apache 2. ls. You see, error logs and access logs. So if I do something like tail-f on this access log now and hit enter, this is what you will see. You will notice it's trying to run the file, but this tail-f is like read to, I want to be able to read what is happening to this file in real time. So let me see. I hope this is, I don't know if it's this, but let me just click on this. As I refresh this, let's see. Okay, I don't know if it's that container, but let me see. I'm not sure which of those containers has it, but let me see if maybe it's this. Okay, no, this is down. Okay, so now see what I will do. I will just click here. I can just click on plus. I will switch to another shell. Did you see that? I just switched to another shell. So if I type docker and container and say ps-a, you will notice that this is what we have. So the one that is currently running the test, let's see. Okay, so this is the test. Okay, test is listening on port 80. So let me see, this is port 80. So I'll click here and just add port 80 and hit enter. Let's see. Okay, click here and see. Okay, for some reason, let's see. Okay, hold on, click on this. This is test. This is okay. Okay, I didn't put any ports. I think that's the problem. I didn't specify any external ports. Friends, can you see this? If you notice, this is not mapped correctly. So what I was supposed to do when I ran this command, what I did that time was this. Let me just quickly switch out of here. Control C, and let me just exit for now. So what I did here when I created that file was this. Okay, this is what I did. I was supposed to specify a port -p. Is it not true? And do something like externally, you should run on port 9000 against port 80. Okay. So if I do this, sorry, you have to remove already. Okay, it's true. It's the name that's the issue. So let's say we want to call this test 2. If I hit enter, okay, let's see. Unable to start this. Which part is not found? Let me see. Okay, let me just check the container to be sure it's working. So I hope I've not confused anybody. So what we just have is Docker tests and Docker. So which means it failed, it didn't work. Let's see. Hold on, let's see. Okay, dash exec dash p. Hold on. Let's see. This should work blamelessly without this. Okay, let's see this. Now, so that I don't confuse anybody, right? Now, what I'm trying to do is to map a port. The same way this port was mapped is the same way I'm trying to map this port. You understand? Now, what I was trying to achieve there is by showing us how we can specify a volume. Okay, if you want to specify a volume, all you need to do is just to mention the name of the volume. There are 3 types of volume. Okay, we have what we call the bind volume. So let's do this first. Docker volumes. So if I do this, Docker volume rather, not volumes. PS or ls, so ls rather. Okay, so if you notice driver dash volume name dash, there's no volume so far. Now, but if there was any, if I had created a volume here when I was doing this, maybe I do something like dash v and say I want to create a folder in this location and say the name of the folder is going to be data. I want to bind it to a location inside the container in a location called temp. Now let's see. Okay, it doesn't want me to use that same name. Let's see. C2. Error response, failed to shame task. Hold on. I don't want it to be giving me this error. Now, the most important thing is that it usually creates the container, okay? But it doesn't run it directly, okay? It doesn't run the container. If you see here, this is Docker run. It doesn't run it. That's why we are getting this error. But I want to see if it creates the volume. If I say Docker volume ls, it doesn't create that volume. So, which means there's a problem somewhere. Let's see. Container 2. Now this is, hold on. Let's do this. All right, let's keep everything very simple. I'll just do this so that I don't mess this thing up and confuse you all. Okay, now if I type Docker images, you know we already have some images here. Is that true? If I want to run a copy of this Apache that we have here, I'll do Docker container. Okay, run and dash IT dash D. Then I will give it a name and say I want it to be coming with the name container 3. And not just that, I want the name of the image is going to be this. So let's do this. I'm going to paste this and hit enter. So if you notice, it's working flawlessly, right? So for some reason, it was not working because, let's see. I'm trying to check to see run -d. Okay, maybe I think it's because I was not putting -it when I was working, but the error message was not interactive. So if I do docker ps-a, you will notice that it just created something for us. And if you scroll up here, you'll be able to see the one we just created now, which is container 3. Okay, I think so. Let's see. Let me be sure. No. Okay, container 3. So this is container 3, and if you can see, it's up already. But the problem is that I didn't map it with a port. So this is what I'm going to do. If I press up arrow key, I'm going to change this thing to container 4, and then I will give it a port name -p and say I want this to be 9000 volume 80. And also, okay, the another thing I want to do is to put -v. I want to put a drive to map it to TMP. So if I hit enter, still failing. Okay, let me do something. Let's do it without the drive, without the volume. Okay, and change this to volume 5 and see with the port if it just works. Or no, let's just do the volume. Okay, Apache 2 -v and say the name of the drive is this, map it to /tmp. Let's see. Container 6. Okay, so if I hit enter, all right, so I'm getting strange errors. So I'll just come here and say map docker volume to host. So let's see. This. See, this is just the same way the volume path. So this is just how to, I think I'm correct. I don't think I missed anything. So the only thing we will do is just clear. Let's do this. Okay. Let's keep this one aside and see. Still get the same thing. Continuous 7. Okay, let's create that drive. mkdir and call it drive. ls. So we have a folder called drive. Now let's run this and change this to container 9 and hit enter. So why is it failing? Am I missing something? Let's see. Hold on. Okay. Docker run -d, you give it a name, mount this. So it works with --mount or -v. So I used the same thing here. Source is equal to this. Destination is equal to this. It doesn't matter. You mustn't use it like this. I hope I'm not confusing anybody. Can you all still hear me? Can you all hear me, please? Okay, okay, okay,
Yes.
great. So for some reason, this is not giving me what I want, but so that I don't confuse anybody, I can painstakingly keep trying to fix this. But the most important thing I want you all to understand, because of time, right, is if you're working with what is it called, Docker Compose, you will always want to talk with what we call volume, and you will always work with what we call network sometimes. Okay, in most cases, either you use a default network or you create your own network. You understand? So now, but what we have here is just a simple volume. If there was time, what I wanted to do was create a simple Docker image that will create a front-end application, then create another service that will create an Nginx, then do something we call a reverse proxy. You understand? So, but because of time, but this is a simple service. This is a simple service that will create a database. You understand? Then create a volume. Now, this volume here, db_data, does not exist yet. But when this container is created, there's a location called /var library MySQL. So this volume here, when it is created, it will be mapped to this location. So anything that is stored here will be found inside here. So even when the container is deleted, you will always find the volume, the information inside here. So this environment is like passing variables, okay? All the commands you may want to use. So this is for a WordPress. So this is another service. If this service is connected to this, you can do something like this, depends on, then you specify that this WordPress depends on this to work. That's what this command means. If you scroll to the bottom, you see that this is using image this. So this is the same volumes we are using here. And this is ports. This is this. Now, friends, if you look at this carefully, the only thing that you may not understand is this one. And if you notice, this is look on a different column. It's on the same column with the services. Now, what is this one doing? If you watch here, what is this column doing? This is specifying those volumes that were mentioned at the top. Another volume, WordPress data, see it here. So this is going to create those volumes. The volumes does not exist. That is why if I come here and do something like Docker volumes and do ls, you see there is no, sorry, Docker volume, not volumes. You see there is no volume yet. But by the time we run this and we are able to, when we run this now, you will notice that it's going to create two volumes, this one and this one. So let's do that together. I think we'll have to do this class again so that we will understand this again, but let's just see. Or maybe in the course of the week, but let's just see. Docker. Okay, first of all, let me delete some of the images we have here. Docker images. If you do Docker images, you see some images. Is it true? But if we do Docker container, sorry, container, and PS or LS, anyone should work. You see a lot of them running, right? I'm going to stop all of them. First of all, I've already shown you that if we do Docker -q, sorry, ls-q rather, if you do ls dash Q, it will just give you the names, right? Now, of the containers that are available. Now, but if you put space dash A, it will show you the ones that are both the ones that have exited and the one that's not exited. Do you understand? Now, this is Docker ls dash Q. Friends, do you know that this ls, if I use ps, can you see it's still the same thing? PS, ls is the same thing. Okay, PS can be for process, ls can be for list. Doesn't matter, it works the same way. Now, this dash Q and dash A can be merged together. So if I do A, either the A comes before the Q or the Q comes before the A, it doesn't matter, to give us the same thing. Okay, it will give me the names of all the containers. So if this is true, friends, sometimes you will see something like this. So I'm going to press Ctrl C right now. Let me show you something. If I want to delete containers that are running, if I do Docker container and use RM, did you see that? That is used to remove. If I hit enter, you see it will tell me to specify the container, right? So if I do this now, I already know, right, that I can specify a lot of Docker containers here. I know there's one of them called test. If I do this and hit enter, it will tell me that container is running. I need to stop it, right? Now, but if you come and just put dash F, which is to force it, okay? Now, best practice, always stop it before you move on. But in case, don't worry, you can always use dash F to force so that it will stop this container and then remove it. So if I hit enter now, did you see what happens? If I run that result again, this container will no longer be there. Do you understand? Now, instead of doing this one by one, how about we use this method that I just shown you here? So if I come here, I will do Docker container RM. Did you see this? Now, sometimes you see it, you see this. This is backticks. Sometimes you see something like this. Did you see this thing I did here? Is backticks. It's I don't know where can I find it. Let me type it on chat box so you can see it. Backtick. It looks like apostrophe, but it's not. You understand? So it's, if you know where your one is, if you press shift and one, you see tilde there. No, not one. There's a key beside one. Beside one, that's where you can get the backtick. Okay, so if I do this, it will work. Sometimes people don't like using this backtick. Sometimes they use this closing bracket or an opening bracket. Then they now put a $sign here. This is what you will see. So if I do this now and hit enter, did you see what it did? So now, if you notice, it stopped some of them. That's why you can see this one's up. But the ones that are running, it did not stop them because they are still running. So all I need to do is to come here and put dash F, which means it should force anything that is running. So if I do this, can you see? So now if I do Docker container ls, you see there's no container running. Now we've understood this. Let's run this, our Docker compose, this one we have here. So if I do Docker compose dash D or Docker compose up dash D. Okay. So let's do this. So did you notice what's happening? Friends, did you notice that it's downloading the WordPress? So this WordPress does not exist, it's downloading it. The DB, this MySQL does not exist and it's downloading it. Did you see? So this image is downloading this image. That's why you can see under the database, that's what is happening. Under the what is it called? WordPress is downloading WordPress. So it depends on the size. It's done with the what is it called? It's done with the WordPress. The WordPress has 21 layers in terms of the WordPress image. Don't worry about the WordPress. In terms of that WordPress image, it has a lot of layers. But the most important thing you see is that those two services has worked. And if you notice here, you see that these volumes has been created. So if I come here now, right, then you see this volumes has been created. And then this container has been created, Docker db-1. So if I come here and say Docker volume and put ls, can you see we have volumes here? Okay, so in other words, anytime those WordPress are running, we will definitely be able to access the files inside this location, some of the files in terms of the logs and the rest. Okay, now we've been able to confirm that this is working flawlessly. If we do something like Docker compose and say stats, am I okay? Now it's together. Am I missing something? Let's see. Okay, it doesn't work with stats, but okay. For some reason, it doesn't work with stats. Let's use events. So ideally, it's supposed to be giving us information from based on whatever is happening on those containers. Okay. Now, but for the sake of, because we've not done anything yet, I've just terminated it. So if I do Docker, what is it called? Docker compose. This is always together. I don't know why I usually remove it. Docker compose, and we do PS, right? And do -A. You will notice that we have two of this, and you can see this is our WordPress listening on port 8000. So this is 8000. So if I come here and click here and add an extra port called 8000, so this is the 8000. So if I click on this, so let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. We're supposed to get our WordPress application. Now this is taking longer time. Now for some of you it may be faster, right? So, but the most important thing, if you notice, it's not showing us any error of any sort. It's not showing us any error of any sort. The most important thing, I've not done anything difficult here. This is the simple Docker compose file that I have here that I showed you all, right? And I explained the version, which is what we have here. Okay, this is the services. This is just if you notice, this is a container that we have here. Okay, this is another container, a container for a MySQL database, a container for a WordPress container. So with the help of Docker compose, we've been able to spin up to connect those two containers together. And that is the job of, what is it called? Docker compose for multi-containers. So these two containers can connect together. So if you notice, this username, password, and everything is here. So this is taking time, but ideally, when this is done, you're going to literally see the WordPress interface, and then we'll be able to log in. Just you do the normal configuration for a WordPress. Any of you that have done a WordPress before, you will notice that it will ask you some few information, and then you just pass the information, and you'll be able to get you can get a simple blog, a very, very simple blog, because WordPress can be used to create a blog application. So this is taking time. For those of you that may try it, please try it and let me know. Okay. Now, I would have taken this very, very simple, but I wanted us to achieve something in real time. Okay. So the most important thing you should learn from today's class is that Docker can be used to connect. Docker Compose can be used to connect more than one applications, more than one containers. Okay. And sometimes in those containers, we can have what we call volumes, and sometimes we can have what we call networks. Okay, so because of time, trying to force so many information within this time, that's why it looks like I'm rushing and I'm explaining some things and the rest of them. So I may still have to share a video to help some persons that may not understand some basics understand them very well. But other than that, this is just how it works. This is taking longer time, but please let me know if you have any questions. Sorry for keeping us longer than expected. Okay, for production purposes, what we are going to be using, we're not going to be passing hard coding passwords like this. Okay, so we will literally be using some what is it called? We'll be using a vault, or I could use I can pass it like a secret file. Okay, there's a way we work with Docker for secrets and the rest of them. You understand? Or we can even use what we call a vault. That's the best way to handle hard credentials like this. Okay, that's a very, very good and smart question. Any questions so far from anybody? Any question? This is taking longer time.
I have one more idea.
So I'm going to share a code. I can hear you, please. Somebody's saying something.
Yeah, sorry. I asked one more on the group just before the password zone also.
Okay, you asked the question. Let me see. I can't see the question.
Okay, let me just go. So I was asking, if we delete these containers, do their volumes also get deleted, or are they permanent? Maybe in case the container crashes or something. So do we still keep the volumes that we've attached that we specified here, or these volumes will also be lost with the containers if the container crashes?
Okay, if the container crashes, as long as you are using the way we map this volume like this, right? If you create the same container using the same name, right? The same name, it will be mapped to it as though nothing happened. Does that make sense? Do you get what I just illustrated?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
it would be like it was never down.
Yes, as though nothing happened. It was always up. All right. Friends, any question? So please, I want to encourage everybody, if you really want to grow in your DevOps knowledge, right? Learning Docker is very, very important. Learning Docker is very, very important. You understand? I know there's so many informations that was passed across, and just trying to rush and do so many things. If I have to take my time to make this, connect all this, time will fail us. If the class will be too lengthy, okay? Because we want the recording to not be so lengthy. That's the reason why we usually want to just stay within 2 hours. And sometimes it looks like we're rushing everything. But please, if you have any question now, please let me know. All right, so if there's no question, I really hope this session has been very informative for everybody. So we will stop the recording now. Yeah, I think I will stop the recording here. Let me see. I'm sure I can stop it. Let me see. Yeah.